Probably long after this monument was abandoned, somebody called it Robin Hood's Bower, which hasn't no bearing on probably no bearing on what the monument was designed to do. But that's not the point of this. My point is to point out that in the landscape is not just about right wing ideology. It also there are also liberal and left wing projections onto the landscape. But obviously, this is, I get sidetracked and start talking about what the monument is archaeologically. But you see my point.
After this week, the last week, making the proposition that there weren't many things in the landscape that weren't weren't nationalistic. So it's that's conservative. And then I had to think about it and came up with several that were more egalitarian. So today I'm looking for, I've looked at the map and I've found a few places that might be of interest to show that that's not the case.
Ooh, bluebells.
So I'm in Southley Woods, just outside Warminster. There's loads of archaeology around Warminster, loads and loads of it. Some of it extremely important. There's a lot of I would say, heritage stuff that's sort of worldwide importance. But I'm looking for signs of egalitarian thinking when it comes to the landscape. So I found a place called Robin Hood's Ball.
The pointy, sticky outy part of the enclosure has this, shrine or land art or whatever it is placed in it. So the hippies stroke students stroke pagans that set this up probably reacted the way that the Iron Age or whoever the people who built this enclosure would have reacted.
So what do we think? You might say, well, leave it to the archaeologists, they'll tell us. Just idiots on the internet, on YouTube, can't really tell us very much, but you don't need to dig to learn something about the landscape. So we know that from a number of field archaeologists, but the most famous of whom is OGS Crawford, who and others. Yes, you analyse the landscape. What are the, you compare marks, and so let's see what we can work out from, if you don't mind me saying so, from what we've got here. So we have a sub-rectangular enclosure. Now, the best way to carve up a landscape, to make fields and landscape, is to break it up into a grid. So whenever you have an enclosure, something that sits inside something with sort of four walls or a circle or whatever, or something like that, it's special of some kind. It's just not efficient to break up. If you want a smaller space in a field, you take a corner and then you put two walls in that corner, and that's the efficient way of doing it. So they didn't mind sacrificing efficiency to make this, whatever it is. So it might be special in the sense of, when we think of, in terms of historical terms, of special, we think of ritual, or we think of, symbols of royalty and things like that. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that. So this land is really, really boggy. Even though we're up here and in a wood, it's really, really boggy. By making these ditches, it is draining the inside. So it could be as simple as something as, it's a lot of effort to go into to make a drier garden in a marshy area, in a boggy area. But it could be that. So it might not just be just because this is a wood now, it doesn't mean it wasn't pasture or a heath or a field. Judging by the wetness it would have been a heath or marsh or something. We're quite high up as well, it's quite odd, but it's very poorly drained. So it could, just because it isn't now one of those things, doesn't mean back in prehistory or ancient times it wasn't then. So it could have been a stocking enclosure. People do, so cattle. People do think that rectangular enclosures often are, and sort of semicircular ones are as well. But it is a hell of a lot of effort to go to dig a ditch that big, and you're still going to have to put a fence, because cattle can easily go up and down a ditch. So it could have been drainage, and it did drain that area. But I think it's more important than that in some sense. But it is heavily wooded, so I can't see any sort of circular sort of marks on the ground or anything with the drone. So it's impossible to say whether or not it was a settlement. Didn't see any pottery or anything. So yeah, you can't tell until I need to check. So corners. It's said quite flippantly that by archaeologists that the Romans brought corners to Britain. There were sub-rectangular enclosures in Iron Age Britain, but not many, and they did prefer circular. They did prefer curves. It fitted in with, I don't know, maybe it's a cultural thing or organisational thing, but though they did, if you look at Celtic fields, you will see grids of fields, but the settlements themselves were very often quite curvy. So was this built by Romans, as in proper Latin-speaking Romans, Ave Salute Naughty Naughty? Probably not. They like to survey things. Things were ordered. Even when they weren't absolutely square rectangular, they were well ordered, and this isn't really. So it's probably, in my mind, it's probably Iron Age or probably Iron Age. But let's go. So I'm just going to put that out there, take a risk. Anyway, I'm not an archaeologist, so don't really care. But if I do happen, I'll be pleased if I am right. But if I'm not, no harm done. So it's good to test what we think. So I'm going to go back and check the Heritage Environmental Record, which each council keeps. Most of them are online. The Wiltshire one is online, and then see how right I am. So that's the next stage.
I've since checked, and not a lot can be really said. It hasn't been dug. Well, it doesn't seem to have been dug. It does. The consensus seems to be that it's prehistoric or Romano British. But what is an interesting bit of information about it is that nonconformists in the sort of 17th, 18th century used to meet there for their ceremonies, which is also egalitarian as well.
So the ridge up behind me, well not ridge, the hill up behind me has a tumulus on it, and there's lynchets, and all around there's hill forts. These hills are chock-a-block full of ancient monuments, but this is down in the valley. So Robin Hood's ball, why is it a symbol of, why could it be considered, why do we think of Robin Hood, why do we name things after him? Well, and why does it fit into the theme of egalitarianism? Well, Robin Hood, though he probably never existed, like many of our great heroes, he obviously robbed the rich to feed the poor, right? So it's rebels fighting to redistribute wealth in this country. It's a very old idea. It didn't need the filter of Marxism to exist. Socialism in this country is you know, socialistic democratic ideas have been around in this country for, you know, at least 1,000 years. I did want to show you something to do with, there's a henge around here, but there's too many electric wires, it's windy. I couldn't guarantee I wasn't going to do something ridiculous with the drone, so I haven't done it. But the next place I'm going to go to is probably a causewayed enclosure to talk about that, to show how a more distributed power existed, you know, 4,000 years before the Middle Ages, you know. But anyway, let's that's this bit done.